Hello and welcome back for another historic video. Today we're going to be playing this Possibility Storm Prison deck. The namesake card, Possibility Storm, is a 5-mana enchantment, and it states that whenever a player casts a spell from their hand, that spell gets exiled, and then the player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a card that shares a card type with the original spell. They can then cast that spell without paying its mana cost. We're looking to pair this enchantment with cards such as High Noon, that states a player can't cast more than one spell each turn, locking them out from playing any spells. Similar effect with Archon of Emeria and Boromir, which counters spells if no mana was spent to cast it. Any of these three means that our opponent is not going to be able to cast any spells at all for the remainder of the game. We also have a soft lock with Grafdigger's Cage, stating that creature cards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. So when this is paired with the Possibility Storm, our opponent can only cast non-creature spells. And then another combo with the cage is Fragment Reality, where we can exile an artifact, creature, and enchantment that our opponent controls. And normally they get to put a creature card with lesser mana value from their library onto the battlefield, but this effect is blocked by the cage, so essentially Fragment Reality is a very cheap removal spell. Supporting cast in the deck, Orm's Chant, trying to slow our opponents down so that we can get up to 5 mana to cast the storm. Additionally, this can be used as a pseudo time walk to prevent our opponents from attacking by kicking it for 1 mana. Reprieve pairs nicely with the High Noon and Archon, as we can cast it on our opponent's turn, returning their spell to their hand, drawing a card in the process, and essentially time walking them as well. Since our deck is on the slower side, we're also running a bunch of board wipes. At 3 mana, we have Brotherhood's End, which can either deal 3 damage to each creature and planeswalker, or we can destroy all artifacts with mana 3 or less. We also have 2 copies of Day of Judgment and 2 copies of Wrath of God as board wipes as well. And then additionally, this deck is running 4 copies of Enlightened Tutor. Since a lot of our key cards are artifacts and enchantments, the Tutor is perfect for the deck, allowing us to go grab the card that we need in the given situation. Along with the Tutor, we're also running a single copy of Portable Hole as a cheap removal spell that we can grab against decks such as Minion of the Mighty. Then for the mana base, we're running a bunch of dual lands. We do have both a white and red artifact land that we can grab with the Tutor, and our primary win condition is in here as well, which is Castle Ardenvale. Once we get the Possibility Storm in play, we're also going to be locked out of casting new spells, so the only way we can really win is with our lands. The castle allows us to create 1/1 tokens, which we can use to chip away at our opponent's life points until we win the game. But more realistically, what we're hoping for is our opponent sees that they're locked out and just concedes, so that we don't have to click through everything, as if we don't have a castle in hand already, it can be a bit laborious while we wait to draw one. Looking at the way the deck is constructed, I think we should be very strong against decks that utilize creatures to win the game. And we also have pretty good teeth against a lot of combo decks. With all the graveyard hate in our deck, we should do very well against Reanimator. Cards like High Noon and Archon are naturally good against Storm variants, and even decks such as Elves, where they're trying to dump a bunch of creatures onto the battlefield very quickly. Before we jump into the gameplay, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe the video. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the games. Looks okay. We have the Tutor for early game combos, and then some decent mid game. Opponent plays out a Vista, passes the turn. We'll play out a Plains. See what color they fetch up here. An island. And a starting town. So this is likely, well, Talisman leans towards Eldrazi. We'll grab a Portable Hole. Take out their Talisman if we can. Usually, when you can slow down a ramp deck, it's really advantageous. There's a Rumble, Spelunking, so it's actually Lotus Field combo. Don't know what they're ramping into though. Oh, they name Eldrazi with the Caverns. Here, we'll hold up our Reprieve. Wouldn't have been unreasonable to play out Archon as well, but we're digging for lands, and we might use Brotherhood's End. Rumble, send that back to hand. Fragment's a great top deck. We can use that to deal with the Spelunking, and our opponent doesn't want to play with us anymore. On to the next. This hand looks pretty good. We can keep. Has Graveyard Hate, early creature interaction, and we can also tutor. An island, and then an otter. We don't mind just taking that out right away. Planisphere. And then here, don't think that we need to bolt ourselves yet. We'll play out a Grafdigger's Cage. Opt from our opponent. I imagine this version of the deck is a lot of draw cards. Chart a course, put a couple more counters. Here, we're going to use the tutor, go grab another land. Alternatively, we could get the portable hole. I think that's reasonable too. And we'll take out the token instead of the Planisphere. If they don't have another creature, they're going to have to cycle through some cards before being able to re-equip. And a forest. Was not expecting green. Don't really know why that's in here. Archon's going to be very good against them. Slow them down tremendously. So Sleight of Hand will be their spell for turn. We'll play out another Cage. Hit for 2. Curate. They like one of their cards. And it looks like we didn't get our upkeep stop set in time to use Orum's Chant. So we'll just let them have the Chart a Course this turn. And we'll chant them next turn. Alternatively, I say we could hold up Enlightened Tutor, but we don't have 5 lands yet. So we're very close to locking them. We're just missing a couple key pieces. Another Curate. And then before they draw, and we might as well use Kicker. They flash in and opt. Send card to the bottom. So that didn't quite work for us. They still got their spell. Missed on the land drop again. Pass the turn. I imagine they have to have more than just the Planisphere and the Otters in their deck. Sleight of Hand is their one spell. draw another non-land. So we are starving for mana here. $15 cards into our deck. Miss again. Our opponent's not having any trouble getting their lands down. They equip the Planisphere. That's their spell for turn, though. And we finally draw into our land. Unfortunately, we need to deal with their onboard creatures before we can... Can't block it anyway. Play our Possibility Storm, but we'll go grab it here. And then our opponent has one spell, so we'll attack in first. We'll try Brotherhood's End. Opt saves the Otter and destroys our Archon. So we've been got here. Seed of Hope. This just unlocks their hand. They can draw as many cards as they can this turn. And with the amount of mana they have, they're likely to win this one now. But they stop. So we'll use Wrath of God. This will definitely connect. Might as well play out the Vantage. Commune with Beavers, finds another Otter. We'll have to use another board wipe here. Or we can do Fragment Reality. That's even better. Now we can play out Possibility Storm. Just need to find our castle. We have 3 of them in the deck. Gonna fast forward for a bit until something meaningful happens. And our opponent finally throws in the towel. Good game. This hand is pretty fair, but we'll give it a try. And I think we'll just start on the cage here. Set an upkeep stop in case we want to tutor. Just take a natural draw. Play out a tap land. Pass the turn. Up against Affinity. And they have an early Enforcer. And a Thought Cast. So this is CMC 4 still. Portable Hole won't work on it. We could go for their Springleaf Drum. I think here, the first thing we're going to do is grab another land. Then we can get the Archon down. This should really slow down their deck. They won't be able to dump a whole bunch of cheap cards out all at once. Ravager means we'll likely need to find a board wipe. Opponent is trying to cast another spell here. They're not familiar with the Archon. And they don't attack in with the Frogmite either. That was probably a mistake. We'll play out the castle here, hold up our Enlightened Tutor. Fountain Port means that our opponent can generate tokens for a bit. And Thought Monitor is something we'll need to answer in the air before playing out the Possibility Storm. Don't think we have any enchantments that can deal with the creatures, so we'll just draw towards a board wipe. Pass the turn. Galvanic Blast is fine. Grafdigger's Cage is what we really need, since we're planning on wiping the board anyway. Now they're going to dump their hand. They know what they need to play around. They were able to go empty. We'll create a token, and we'll block the Arcbound Ravager. Unfortunately, just another land here. If our opponent sacrifices everything, I do believe they have lethal. We'll just see how aggressive they want to be. Another Enforcer. And then here, we're going to tap manually so that our opponent thinks we have a follow-up. Maybe they don't go all in on the Ravager. Looks like they're making their move. We'll see if they pull the trigger though and go through with it. They do. So this is just going to be lethal. Unfortunately, we never drew into a board wipe, and our opponent had too much pressure on board to play out the Possibility Storm. This hand is on the fairer side. There are going to be decks that it's very good against, and probably a few that will just run it over. Opponent leads on a swamp. We'll hold up our tutor. Another swamp here. Don't think we want to necessarily go grab anything yet. Suppose we could go grab a High Noon. Play that out. No play from our opponent. We'll play out the Vantage. It's the last turn it can come in untapped. One ring. We'll reprieve. Just need to draw into one more land, and there it is. So we can play out the Foundry tapped, pass the turn. And then if our opponent plays back out the one ring, we should win the game here. They need to have another land and discard, which doesn't look like they have. So High Noon and Possibility Storm completely lock them out here until we draw our creature lands. We'll see how long it takes our opponent to figure out that they can't cast anything. And try and help them along with the concession. Now the one ring will act as a clock, so we don't need to draw into our castle to win, although it is a slow clock at this point. Just pass the turn. Sheoldred will get countered as well. They draw more cards, helping us out. But they refuse to throw in the towel and concede. Some players just don't know when they're beat. Still trying to cast spells. And there's the concession finally. On to the next. This hand is not bad. We'll keep. Start on the Vantage. Hold up Fragment Reality. Gorge. Mind always goes to a minion deck when I see it. They play out a Mountain and pass. I think here we're probably pretty safe playing out the Archon. Means our opponent can't play the minion and give it haste in the same turn, if that is indeed what we're up against. Occlusion Forest, yep. So that was their game plan. They're going to be in for a bad time. We'll attack in with the Archon. They're going to have to play out a pump spell on the minion, in which case we can use Fragment Reality and not have to worry about a protection spell. Also means that Scale Up is going to be the only one that works. We'll attack in. I think when we play High Noon here, our opponent's just going to concede. Well, there it is. So we managed to navigate that one very well. This hand is not bad. We keep. Notably, all of our lands are going to come into play tapped at the moment, so that will slow us down a bit if we're up against the fast deck. Thoughtseize probably takes the Tutor. Could take Fragment Reality, depends on what their game plan is. And they decide to go for High Noon. Another discard spell. Get rid of the Brotherhood's End. And then here, don't think we want to get the cage down necessarily. Could just hold up the Tutor in case our opponent uses another discard spell. We can still get value from it. And the Voidwalker, we don't mind using Fragment Reality on. We'll Tutor first. Go get our High Noon. Then we'll fragment the Voidwalker. No 1-drops. And unfortunately, I forgot we had another tap land, so High Noon is vulnerable now. Opponent appeared to have missed a land drop and just conceded. This hand is fine, we'll keep. Play out the plains, and then we're probably fine playing out the cage here. Looks like we could be up against Woodlands combo. Nope, it's going to be Valakid. Another difficult deck for us, since the lands themselves can kill us. We'll play out the Vantage and then hold up Fragment Reality. 2 mountains already from our opponent. Don't like to play these combo decks that get around our lock pieces. Means we're going to have a tremendously difficult time winning. We'll just exile their Kami. Try and keep the pressure off. And then we'll play out an Archon. Make all of their non-basics enter tapped. Scrying. Could just grab another Valakid. And that's what they do. Notably, Valakid itself is not a mountain. They're relying on, forget the name of the creature, but there's a 3-drop that turns lands into every land type. If they have that here, then we've pretty much lost already. Omen does the same thing. So they'll just kill us very quickly. No point in continuing. We have no way to stop their lands, so we're going to lose this one. This hand, not terrible. We can keep it. Turn 1, we could either hold up Fragment Reality and Enlightened Tutor, or we could chant our opponent. I think we'll hold up the Tutor. We can always fragment something as well. And this is going to be a Charbelcher deck. So Orm's Chant, not going to be tremendously useful. We don't have a Pithing Needle in this deck either. So we'll go get, let's see, High Noon doesn't help us. Grafdigger's Cage doesn't help. We'll grab an Ancient Den for now. Just help us hit our land drops. And actually, we can use Worm's Chant if they have Iron Crag. Well, against a Storm deck, the Chant is also good. We'll get rid of their Medallion using Reality. They don't have a 1-drop creature. Of course, we draw into Brotherhood's End the turn after we take out the artifact. Don't know this one. That'll have to be fine. We'll play out a Cage. And what is this? Whenever you cast one. Okay. So that is going to get around Possibility Storm because their spells don't have to resolve.
Luck will break my way, eventually.
Unfortunately, we don't draw into a land here, but we do find High Noon. And it didn't give us time to set a priority stop. You have to be careful in the Arena client. It's sneaky sometimes and doesn't act intuitively. But our opponent just concedes. This one was far from over, as we had no pressure on board yet. Good game. Alright, so there you have the deck. Didn't do embarrassingly over the matches, although compared to some of the other prison decks out there, I feel like this one is maybe a little bit weaker, although the joy from locking your opponent out of the game with Possibility Storm is unrivaled. There's a little bit more complexity to the deck, having to navigate the interaction between Possibility Storm and some of our lock pieces, and some of the negative synergies, such as the Archon and Boromir paired with the board wipes that we have, which could potentially take out our lock pieces. As usual, I was very happy with the Enlightened Tutor package. Could potentially bring in something like a Pithing Needle or Rest in Peace for more persistent graveyard hate, shaving a couple copies of Grafdigger's Cage. Don't necessarily think Orym's Chant and Brotherhood's End are needed in the deck either. Those can be swapped out for more interaction. And when it comes to the mana base, I might shave some of the Sundown Pass for a land that comes into play untapped, as there were a number of instances where we didn't get to play on curve because we had too many tap lands in hand. I think the cards you see here in front of you are a very good starting point. It just needs a little bit more tweaking to really iron out the wrinkles and get the deck to a point where it feels strong in most of the matchups. One deck we didn't really come up against was a control deck, so it would be interesting to see how well it fares when our opponent has counter spells, since a lot of our plays are targeted towards creatures and also a little bit costly, meaning double spelling in a turn could be quite difficult. On the other hand, we do have the castle in the deck, which is usually good against control matchups. However, in Modern Historic, it might be a bit slow against control, as if you do give them unlimited time, they will eventually win the game. That being said, the games were very fun today, and as always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.